Good evening, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. On this warmer, rainy Tuesday. I was thinking about it today, and I'm going to play the spoiler warning. Because we're going to talk a lot about some of the parts of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever that have broader implications for the MCU. Specifically, a lot of what has to do with Val and her lengthy time in the movie. Because I saw an article today that was interesting, and the article was from IGN, and they said, why did they treat Riri Williams like she's an Infinity Stone? And I looked at it and I'm like, well, it's a pretty simple answer to this question. She is, and I apologize for the noise in the windshield. I'm trying to keep that as infrequent as possible. The answer to that is, she's basically filling the role of America Chavez in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but her character development is shortchanged in favor of doing more with Val and setting up the Thunderbolts movie, because that's, at the end of the day, all of this is. Now, the question is, where does this go for the Thunderbolts movie? And it's a question that I've kind of thought about for the last few days. I saw the movie Friday night, and it's now Tuesday, and I've been thinking about this. Because here's the thing. Val kind of sets up what she wants. We finally have a sense of what Val wants. Val wants... I'm talking about Valentina, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She wants vibranium. She wants access to the world's vibranium supply. And she's currently the head of the CIA. Why? Why does she want that? And the question is, I think that, you're going to hear a lot of me thinking and speaking out loud about this, so you may end up with some things that I'm speculating about that may or may not be true, that may also end up be fleshed out. Some parts of this I've been thinking about all day, some parts I haven't. Now, let's look at, first and foremost, what we know about the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts is coming out in 2024, July of 2024. And the team will be comprised of Val, obviously. The movie will also feature Harrison Ford making his debut as Thunderbolt Ross following the death of William Hurt. But it'll also include a team comprised of Red Guardian, who's played by David Harbour in Black Widow. There is Yelena Belova, as portrayed by Florence Pugh, both in Black Widow and in Hawkeye. There is Ghost, Hannah John Kamen, who was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Oh, no, Ant-Man and the Wasp, not Quantumania. Maybe in Quantumania. We haven't seen the movie yet. There is U.S. Agent John Walker, played by Wyatt Russell, from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There is the Winter Soldier himself, Bucky Barnes, that's played by Sebastian Stan. And then there is Taskmaster. I don't know the actress's name, but also from Black Widow. So if you look at the team, we have U.S. Agent, we have U.S. Agent, and we have Ghost, and then a bunch of Russian nationals. And Ghost should be noted, well, not Russian national, but former Soviet agents. Ghost should be noted was a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative, while S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra. Now, Val, over the course of, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, is kind of giving us a sense of what she wants. She is there because Wakanda has vibranium. Vibranium is the most versatile substance on the planet. It can be used to make weapons, it can be used to make armor, it can be used to make all kinds of shit. Undetectable by metal detectors, so you can use it to destabilize. There's so many applications for vibranium. And Val wants it. Val wants the vibranium. She has that line where, Martin Freeman goes, could you imagine what it'd be like if the United States was sitting on the world's vibranium supply? And she says, I've literally dreamt of that. and she wants all of the vibranium in the world. And look, that on the one hand, she's the head of the CIA. The CIA is not a great organization, so it's not unlike Marvel to portray it that way. I think we're getting into something deeper, though. Because by and large, up until this point, no real-world government entity has been portrayed poorly. Like, damage control is not portrayed well, but that's not a real entity. What's the other one that's not really portrayed well? Like, the NYPD is portrayed fine, U.S. Army's portrayed fine, U.S. government's portrayed fine. CIA is kind of portrayed fine, except for Val, who's portrayed in this negative way. And I think one of the things we're going to get into is that she's either going to end up being a Skrull in Secret Wars, or she's going to end up being Madam Hydra, which is who I've been saying she's going to be since they introduced her character in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I think the other thing is, we get her introduction when she is when she meets U.S. Agent. And I think the thing that makes me think that, like, you know, there's more to it is not just that, but when she goes to talk to Yelena at Natasha's grave, the first person that she dispatches her to kill is Hawkeye. Why does the head of the CIA want Hawkeye dead? And I think that's an interesting question. And I think it's one of the more interesting questions that this has not really been addressed yet. Probably because we're so close to release that we don't really know anything about it and we haven't really gotten too far out. But why does the head of the CIA want Hawkeye dead? Why is Hawkeye the first person? Because if the plan is she wants to get rid of the Avengers, then what's going on there? And if so, why is the first place you're starting Hawkeye when there are other people that should be taken down? And why is Yelena the first person you're using for that? Then the other question is, so what's going on with this team? What's going on with this team here that's going to try to get into Wakanda? Because that's where I think this is going. Is fundamentally Val has one motivation that we've seen, and her one motivation so far is get into Wakanda and get the vibranium. We hear her talk about it here in this movie, where they talk about destabilization. They want to destabilize Wakanda so they can take advantage of it. Because that's what the CIA does. They destabilize countries, and then they take advantage of them. And it's, you know, there's a documented history of this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist talking out of my ass. There's a documented history and historical record that indicates that this is exactly what the CIA has done historically in other countries. Now, the question becomes, you know, if that's the case, and her purpose in life is to get vibranium, and it's all the only motivation that we've had seen on screen in any form, was she wants to get the vibranium. She's dreaming about having the entire world's vibranium supply. She's going to send in the Thunderbolts to Wakanda. Now, if it was purely a team of villains, I'd be like, okay, I can buy that. Like, if instead of, like, even if it was still Ghost, if it was, like, Zemo, who has a bone to pick with the Wakandans, or if it was, Justin Hammer, who works for the highest bidder and is a weapons contractor who would want, who would want to get a hold of vibranium, I can understand that. But the issue is here, like, I think that Yelena being there is and more than Yelena, I would say the bigger deal is Winter Soldier, who lived there for years, lived in Wakanda for years, provided him with an arm. He helped them catch Zemo, and in their interests. And I think a guy who's sitting there saying, like, when me and Steve talked about passing the shield on to you, we didn't think about the implications of a black man taking over as Captain America. A man who says that, I don't think would sign on to invade Wakanda to steal their vibranium. Which leads me to this notion. What if the Thunderbolts is not what it seems? What if the Thunderbolts is Avengers 5, I guess? And it's the formation of the new Avengers team. and the Thunderbolts are the bad guys in the movie who are trying to get into Wakanda. Because there are two ways that I could see this going. Number one is you have an invasion of Wakanda from the of outsiders, this team of Thunderbolts who are trying to get in. And I still don't quite understand where Bucky fits into that, which is kind of where I have an issue with this. But Namor sets it up in the end of Wakanda Forever, when he's talking to Namora, and he goes, look, she spared me. She sees us as an ally. There's going to come a day when the world is going to come for Wakanda and try to take their vibranium, and then we will be there to help them, and that's when we'll attack the surface world. Like, there's that whole thing. And it's this great moment where it's like, okay, so that's what's going to happen there. So there's that possibility where you have to call in the big guns to stop that after the Thunderbolts go in and try to steal it. Or there's the alternative that the Thunderbolts are being brought together to stop another team of villains who are trying to break in. But in any case, I think that Wakanda is going to feature heavily in Thunderbolts, and I think that trying to steal Wakanda's vibranium is going to be the central focal point. I would not be surprised if Tenoch Huerta does reprise his role as Namor in this movie, and I would not be surprised if we end up with Shuri back as well. And I think that with those two teaming up, you really only need a few more people in place. Considering this movie comes out after Ironheart, I could see Riri Williams coming back. Considering the movie comes back after Echo, you have Echo in play. You have, I think, Agatha Coven of Chaos is also next year, so you have characters in play there. And it's one of those things where it's like, this has the possibility to be Civil War for the multiverse saga. And what I mean by that is Civil War was the reason why, when Thanos came, Thanos was able to win, get the Infinity Stones, and kill half the universe. That only happens because the Avengers were fractured. Because if the Avengers were the united front, they wouldn't be able to stop them. And if it weren't for that, then that happened. I'm thinking it's got to be maybe the same thing here, where you have this issue that's going on, and broadly what's happening is you have this thing that's going to cause a schism between the characters who side with Wakanda and the characters who don't side with Wakanda. And I think that picture of all of them together as a team is misleading. I think that's the first thing that we need to acknowledge. That picture that they put out, the concept art of everyone together as a team, is very misleading. I think that if we go into it assuming that that's going to be the team that's all going to be working together toward a common goal, we are headed in the wrong direction. I think we're looking at Suicide Squad cues in a few places, but hopefully not in a bad way. I think we're looking at the marketing ploy being that this initial reveal that they're going to be going after some unknown enemy, I think the enemy is in the concept art. I think the enemy is going to be Val. And I think that we should just acknowledge that now. And it's not going to be like in Suicide Squad, I'm talking about the 2016 Suicide Squad, where all the marketing material was designed to indicate that the squad was going to be going after the Joker. When that was not the case. They were going after Enchantress, who, in the promotional materials, was shown to be on the team in a good amount of the places. Even going so far as, like, the last trailer showing her reacting to the arrival of the Joker in the same way that Harley does. And it's kind of an interesting thing that we're looking at here, where it's like, are we going to be dealing with the same situation? Are we going to be dealing with, are we selling it where she is the good guy? And the question is, too, if she's a Skrull, and that's something that is revealed in, in Secret Invasion in January or February, whenever it comes out, then are we going to be dealing in a situation where, are we going to mask it in that way? Like, I think that if she's a Skrull, I think she's going to be the last Skrull standing. I think she's going to not only be the last Skrull standing, but the one in the post-credit scene to show, oh shit, there are still Skrulls out there. She's going to be the one that people are going to see. And I think that's where this is going to go. I think that's where this is going to end up. What's it called? This is going to end up telling that story and setting it up in such a way that there are so many things in play here and so many different things that I don't think there's a way for, I don't think Val's inclusion and everything to do with Val, and then even Namor to kind of echo it in Wakanda Forever, is by accident or strictly serving this movie and its inevitable threequel. I think that this is specifically designed to showcase this is where we're going. I don't think this is meant to be a misdirect. I think that when they say she wants the vibranium, that's not an act. That is a legitimate character motivation. And for a third appearance of the character, we need something resembling a character motivation. And I think what we're going to end up doing is we're going to have these ground level characters locked in a fight. And I think that there are plenty of other characters within the MCU who fit the bill better as being willing to invade Wakanda than Yelena and and Winter Soldier. Maybe Winter Soldier convinces Yelena to defect, because maybe there's a moment like, look, however briefly it was, I knew your sister. This is not what we should be doing. We should not be going into Wakanda. And then they abandon the mission. And it's the moment for Yelena to pick between her original family and her adopted family. Maybe it's, Val is working for Hydra. Maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, maybe she just wants the vibranium for them. Which is also very entirely possible. And I think it would work just as well. But yeah, there are so many things still in play. So many aspects of the story still sitting on the table that are not explored yet, that we don't know too much yet, but it's just what we've seen in the movies and what we've seen in promotional materials aren't lining up, and I think we should address that before we start getting too far. Keep this in mind as we start getting more and more information about casting, because I'm curious to see who else gets added to the cast of that other, what the fuck was it called, of Thunderbolts. But on that note, we will wrap up there for today. So until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.